Okay, so, pressure, it's kind of like a fact of life. We all deal with it in some way. But
Mhm.
wouldn't it be awesome if we could, handle those like high stress moments a little bit better?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you sent over this podcast episode,
Yeah.
and it was all about staying calm under pressure. So I
Yeah.
thought maybe we could dive into that today.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great idea. And you know what I really liked about that episode was that it kind of like reminds us that our reaction to pressure, it's not just mental,
Oh yeah.
it's also like physical.
That is so true. I feel it in my chest gets all tight. I can't breathe. My heart starts racing. It's like my body is on full alert, like it's an
Yep.
emergency.
Exactly. It's that fight or flight response kicking into gear. And
Yeah.
it's a natural reaction to when we feel threatened, but
Yeah.
it can feel so overwhelming when you're like right in the middle of it. So the key is to like recognize those physical sensations
Right.
so that you can start managing them.
So how do we actually calm down? Like when our body is freaking out. The podcast talked about breathing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There was a breathing technique and it's super simple, but very effective.
Okay.
So it's a 4-second inhale. Hold your breath for 4 seconds and then exhale for 4 seconds. And what's really interesting is that like if you practice this regularly, even when you're not stressed, it can actually train your nervous system to like relax more easily when you are in those pressure situations.
I love that. It's like building a muscle, a
Yeah.
relaxation muscle you
Yeah.
can use whenever you need to. I also really like that part about thinking about the worst case scenario.
Yeah, that's a really helpful tool that's actually used a lot in cognitive behavioral therapy
Ooh.
because it forces you to sort of confront those catastrophic thoughts
Mm.
that, tend to just spiral out of control when you're under pressure. And often, like once you actually look at what's the worst that can happen,
Right.
you realize it's not nearly as scary as you're making it out to be in your head.
That's so true. I do that all the time. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And like, wait a minute. Is this really the end of the world?
Yeah.
Usually not.
Right, exactly. So it's all about gaining perspective.
Mhm.
And once you've kind of done that, the podcast suggests focusing on what you can control
Okay.
because it's really easy to feel overwhelmed by all the things that are outside of our control,
Oh, yeah.
and that just adds to the pressure.
But how do you shift your focus to what you can control? That sounds kind of like Jedi mind tricks to me.
It's actually a lot simpler than that.
Okay.
So let's say you're working on a project at work and there's a really tight deadline.
Yep.
Instead of getting overwhelmed by the whole project, just break it down into smaller,
Okay.
more manageable steps.
So like little bite-sized pieces
Yeah,
instead of the whole giant thing.
exactly. That makes it seem a lot less scary.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
It does. And the podcast also talk about positive self-talk.
Yes.
I've always been a little bit skeptical, but I don't know. Sometimes it feels a little corny to me. Does it actually work?
Yeah.
Or is it just like feel-good fluff?
It actually does work. There's actually a lot of research that supports it because
Yeah.
it's about shifting your inner narrative
Yeah.
from, one of defeat to one of resilience. So instead of saying like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, try saying something like, I'm going to give this my best shot.
So it's like changing the soundtrack in your head from doom and gloom to something a little bit more empowering.
Exactly. It's about creating a more supportive environment in your own mind,
I like that.
which can really make a difference when you're feeling the pressure.
Okay, so we've got breathing perspective shifts
Yeah.
and positive self-talk.
Yeah.
It's like a toolkit
Exactly.
for handling pressure.
Absolutely. And the podcast talked a lot about taking care of yourself physically, too.
Yeah. It talked about like hydration, sleep, and food. I mean, I know those are important for your health overall, but how does that help with pressure?
Well, it directly impacts your brain function and your energy levels. And those are super important when you're under stress, if you're running on empty. Even the smallest challenges can feel overwhelming.
Okay. So it's not just about being good to yourself. It's about being strategic.
Exactly. It's about giving your mind and body the resources they need to perform at their best, especially when the pressure's on. And speaking of resources,
Yeah.
the podcast also highlighted the benefits of physical movement.
Oh, I love to work out.
Mm-hmm.
But who has time to go to the gym when they're already stressed out?
You don't need a lot of time. Even a quick walk or some stretching or a few minutes of jumping jacks can really make a difference.
Okay.
It helps clear your head, release endorphins, and kind of shift you out of that pressure cooker mindset.
So like little bursts of movement throughout the day.
Exactly.
That's so much easier than trying to fit in a whole workout
right.
when I'm already feeling overwhelmed.
And it's about finding what works for you. Maybe it's a quick yoga flow at home or a walk around the block. Even just standing up and stretching for a couple of minutes can make a big difference.
Okay, so we've got breathing techniques, perspective shifts, positive self-talk,
Yeah.
taking care of ourselves physically, and exercise. It's like a whole arsenal
Yes.
of pressure-busting techniques.
Yeah.
And there's one more.
There is one more. Taking breaks.
Yeah, I am so guilty of not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I just try to power through everything.
I know. It's such a common trap.
But I'm sensing that's probably not the best way to go.
It's not. Even just taking a few minutes to step away from whatever's stressing you out can really work wonders.
So what are some good ways to take a break? I was picturing myself on a beach somewhere.
Well, that sounds lovely. But even something as simple as closing your eyes
Oh, okay.
and taking a few deep breaths can be helpful. Or try meditating for a few minutes, stepping outside for some fresh air, or listening to a calming song.
Okay, so it's like giving yourself permission to hit the pause button and just reset,
Exactly.
even if it's just for a few minutes.
And that's where things get really interesting. It's
Yeah.
really about recognizing that taking breaks isn't, a luxury. It's like a necessity.
Okay.
It's about letting your mind and body kind of recharge so you can come back to whatever you're doing with like renewed energy and focus.
It's like when your phone battery is low.
Yeah.
You plug it into recharge.
Yeah.
We need to do the same thing for ourselves.
Exactly. And what's so great about all these techniques is that they're not just for like big stressful events.
Yeah.
You can use them for all sorts of pressure situations.
Oh,
Whether it's work deadlines, relationship issues, even just like the everyday stresses of life.
right.
These tools can help you deal with all of that.
So it's like building resilience for everyday life.
Yeah.
Not just for those big moments.
Exactly. It's about developing that sense of calm and composure that you can carry with you no matter what.
I'm feeling a little bit better equipped to handle pressure just from talking about this. It's like we've made this whole pressure-proofing plan.
I love that.
Yeah.
And the best part is that like all these skills, you can practice them and develop them over time.
Right.
So the more you use them, the more natural they'll become.
So it's not about being like a Zen master, who never feels pressure. It's about learning to manage it.
Exactly. Pressure is a normal part of life. It doesn't have to control us.
I love that. It's empowering to know we have these tools that we can use.
Yeah.
What's really striking me is that a lot of this stuff is really simple.
It is. And that's what's so great about it. You don't need any special equipment or training to start using these strategies.
It's just about making small changes,
Yes.
but doing them consistently.
Exactly. And as you start to integrate these techniques into your life, you might even find that you start to see pressure differently.
Oh.
Instead of something to be afraid of, it can actually become an opportunity for growth.
Yeah, so like pressure as a chance to level up.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that pressure can actually be a catalyst for positive change. It can push us to get out of our comfort zone, to develop new skills, and become more resilient.
This has been so helpful. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on pressure.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there one key takeaway that you'd want our listener to walk away with?
That's a great question. I think if I had to pick one thing, it would be this: staying calm under pressure. It's not a superpower. It's a skill. It's something you can learn and practice and develop. So don't get discouraged if you don't feel like you're naturally calm.
Oh, okay.
Because with the right tools and a little bit of effort, anyone can do this.
Okay.
And handle pressure with more grace and composure.
That's a really good point. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for sharing all these insights. This deep dive has been so helpful.
You're welcome.
And to our listeners, we hope you feel empowered to take on those pressure points with a little more calm and confidence.
And if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, just remember those deep breaths, the power of positive self-talk, and all those amazing tools we talked about today.
Yeah, you've got a whole toolkit. Now go out there and conquer those pressure moments.
Until next time, stay curious and keep diving deep. And remember, you're not alone in this. We all face pressure, in different ways, but we can all learn to handle it better.
Yeah, for sure. So to make this really practical, let's think about one pressure point in your life right now. Could be anything. Work relationships, that holiday party you're dreading.
Okay.
Got it. Now here's the challenge.
What can you use from what we talked about?
Right. Could you try the 4-second breathing? What about breaking down that big scary task into smaller steps?
Or maybe you need to crank up the volume on that positive self-talk. You have the choice in how you react to pressure.
That's right. We gave you the tools.
Yeah.
So use them. Try different things and see what works best for you.
And remember, this is like a journey, not a destination.
That's right. Keep learning and keep diving deep in all this good stuff.
Absolutely.
Until next time, stay curious and keep those pressure moments under control.